Good morning, B. How's it going?
Good morning. Going good. How you doing, sweetie? How's
Good,
your morning
good. I
going?
don't have your Instagram stream, so if you're gonna
It's
add
okay.
them, I need
I
the
w-
key.
I will. I was having a little trouble with it in the beginning, but it's all good now. So that'll be coming over to you here shortly. Welcome everybody to the End of Season podcast. How y'all doing today? Send this link to somebody so they can show up with us and spend this good morning with us. Let's see here. All right, coming to you now, Mama.
All right.
Who we got in the chat? Who we got in the chat?
Don't have it pulled up yet, so go ahead and get me that stream so we can get going on that part. But you guys, welcome. Thank you for joining us here for day 78. So thank you for rocking with us. I see
78.
we do have 78 days. I see that we do have some people out there. So go ahead, B, do your thing while I get the Instagram added.
All right, thank you. Thank you. And again, y'all, welcome. Thank you for rocking with us, for coming, showing up this good morning to celebrate yourself, to get motivation, to get positivity, to get encouragement, to get some fuel for your fire, to get some wind beneath your wings and behind your sail. That's what we're here for this morning. We would just do it for ourselves, but we wanted to share this reading between my mother and I. We've been reading together every day for a while now, except for when I had to go out of town. But instead of doing it just ourselves, we decided to put this out because we knew we weren't the only ones that needed it. So if you know anyone that is looking for encouragement, needs encouragement and motivation, please send them this link. We are live on YouTube. So if they're not on Facebook, that's no excuse. We are live on YouTube. We are live on Instagram. So whatever platform that you have, if you have any of those platforms, which I'm sure most of us do, then please send this link to them. Now, what are we here for? If you've never been with us since February of this year, in celebration of Black History Month and acknowledgement of our history, we have been reading Dennis Kimbro's Daily Motivations for African American Success. This is the book right here. If you're with us and you don't have the book, first off, if you've been with us and you do have the book, thank you. Pat yourself on the back because you took the first step that was needed to process. You took the first step to start this process. Just up here, that's fine. You can get this, but it's for you to read it. You're giving yourself another way to internalize the value that comes from this book. This book is timeless. It was written in 1993, but it still has everything that we've been reading in here has been following us around, has been showing up in our lives, has been bettering the things, bettering our life experience and quality of life. So that's why we're here for the 70th, 78th, I think you said, Mom, day
78th
of
day.
this
Yeah.
consecutive day of this podcast. So a little bit about this book. Daily Motivations for African American Success will help you focus on the thoughts, attitudes, and the deeds that will lead to the achievement of your true goals. In 365 short, powerful motivations, one for each day of the year, Dennis Kimbro, the author of the pop Think and Grow Rich, a Black Choice, leads us to discover how to use the present moment and our own gifts to transcend labels, cultivate a positive attitude, become wise enough to know when to say yes and when to say no, and how to look inward for answers to life's challenges. Each motivation begins with words of wisdom from such distinguished and celebrated African Americans as Malcolm X, Marion Wright Elderman, Goldberg, Charlene Hunter Galt, Bill Carl Rowan, Mother Hale, Leon Sullivan, Reverend Leon Sullivan, and hundreds of others. This treasure trove of practical inspiration will give you fresh encouragement every day of the year. What it teaches will last you a lifetime. So welcome on this April 18th. What you got for us, Mom? You want to shout out anybody in the chat? You want to say
Um,
what's up? Oh, what did y'all did they do the stuff? Did they do the homework?
I don't know. I haven't heard from anybody about the video that I put out about the trauma. I know KL, who I don't see on with us unless he just hasn't commented. He asked me to put the trauma. No, was it the trauma? No, the talents, the talent story that I read yesterday, or the kind of the explanation of it. So I put that out there. I put one video about the trauma, financial trauma, money trauma, how we can get twisted and
Mm-hmm.
look at that. And I do want to give a shout out because I thought about this yesterday. Someone from your Instagram, which are we okay over there on Instagram?
Yep, we are good.
Someone, and I hope they're listening, kind of reminded us. I took it as that as I thought about it throughout yesterday. You know, we have some good millionaires, billionaires, whatever they are. And so how
Yeah.
timeful for that, because we were kind of stirring that, I feel like, and that's not what we were saying, but I'm thankful that he said, you guys, there are some good millionaires. There are some people who have money, um, and they're still good, right? So, and Brandon, as you brought up about it will be
Absolutely.
easier. The needle, gosh, I know this story. It'll be what is about them getting in heaven, for rich people to get in heaven. Yeah.
Right.
So you made me think about it as well, because when we get, if truth be told, you guys, when we're in a good season, when we're in good season where everything is happening for us, most of us don't seek God like we would when we're in need, like when we feel like things are unraveling in our lives, right? And so what would happen if we got money? Sometimes people get money and they don't realize that they don't have money does not help them control anything. It does not allow them to save their last breath or to change their last breath to make it not their last. We've talked about if you own your body, if you are in control, don't blink your eyes. Don't go to the restroom, right? So sometimes money will make people think, oh, I got it now. I've made it, right? And so they stop depending
Right.
on God, maybe stop praying.
Right.
So that person who said that yesterday just kind of just he got us back on track, because and it also made me think about the money trauma, because sometimes we the trauma from money makes us not receive it. And I think we did something one day. It talked about how we use money and how we also push money away, right? So we have to be in
Mm. Mm-hmm.
balance,
Mm-hmm.
in everything, be in balance to receive, but also to let go. And if you become a millionaire, what kind of millionaire would you become? Would you be? How would you respond to people, life situations, and even God in that time? So that's my thoughts. Let's jump into day 78.
Day 78. This April 18th. The title today, this is funny. Strong as an ox. I just had, so Sella made some pozole, mom, and we made it out of oxtails.
Mm.
Yep, it is delicious. There's so much of it. If you get around this way, come by and get you some. But
Yeah, I will. I will, because I will be a little bit of everywhere today. So
oh,
I
good.
will do that.
Praise God. I'm happy I might get to see you. Today's title is Strong as an Ox. Strong as an Ox. And our quote of the day comes from none other than Oprah Winfrey, talk show host, and journal, I think, old journalist. Um, and she said, "What you ought to do, you should do, and what you should do, you ought to do. What you ought to do, you should do, and what you should do, you ought
Right.
to do." Hmm.
Hmm.
Right? It seems kind of cheeky, but I'm like, okay, there's probably
Feeling,
more
I'm
to this.
feeling it. Yeah, you kind of have to
Yeah,
say
yeah,
it a
yeah.
couple of times to kind of feel it, right?
Yeah, it might need to marinate a little bit. Like you don't get all the taste from just like splashing it on there. You gotta let it sit and settle, huh?
All right, Brandon, when you're tasting something and you're trying to like, "Hmm, let me get some more."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let me get some
Yeah,
more.
like let me taste it again. So What you ought to do, you should do, and what you should do, you ought to do. That's the quote for the day. And the passage goes, centuries ago in Africa, a great drought plagued the land. The wheat fields were completely dry. Without adequate water, there would be famine. A young farmer sat on a riverbank. He had just returned from the village shrine, where he had prayed for rain for hours. As he sat on a ledge overlooking the winding river, the stories told him, uh, the stories told to him by his grandfather began to overtake him. In his grandfather's day, hundreds of thousands of people perished because of famine. Faced with similar prospects for his generation, he thought of ways to avert a catastrophe. What could he do? With the flash of inspiration, he had a vision. He would develop a treadmill that was propelled by an ox. When the animal walked, it moved in a circle, scooping buckets of water from the river and dumping them in a trough in the wheat fields. Since that time, there hasn't been a famine because of a lack of rain. Day after day, in a most mundane task, an ox would turn the treadmill that would supply water to drought-stricken crops. So if we're not careful, at various points in our lives, we can resemble an animal on a treadmill. Not one that raises water from a river, but one that is weary and frustrated. How can we get off? By utilizing the same keys used by the African farmer: motivation, a burning desire, and the ability to think. Otherwise, you might need to be as strong as an ox.
Hmm. Hmm.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
I almost need to read that again because sometimes when
I
you read
feel
it,
like you should. That's I was gonna say. Let's do it again. Y'all stay
all
with
right.
us.
Mm, coffee is good today. I got some new creamer last night. Late too. It was like 11 something. It was before 11. Before Kroger closed, I ran in there real quick and got some creamer. You know how I be though. You can't have your coffee without your creamer. At least I can't. I mean, I can, but it ain't this coffee.
What you ought to do is not be at the store
You should do.
in at 11 o'clock.
Why not?
Shh. Brandon, y'all, good morning, Dr. Hunt. Yes, I can today. Mike, my brother, let's make it a great one. He says, Brenda Davis, good morning. Let us know if you're feeling better, Brenda. Let us know if you're feeling better.
Yeah.
So on that note, let's not even talk about the creamer in the grocery store at 11 o'clock at night. Um,
All right, you read it this time. Let's
because
see if we
he
get a
has to
different feel
make
from
me
you.
be stronger than an ox. Okay. You know, I can't, I'm getting my lighting right. Hold on, Brandon. Okay, I'm gonna start back at the top. What you ought to do, you should do, Brandon.
I
What
already
you
know.
should do, you ought to do,
Tammy. Nice.
Brandon. And that's by Oprah Winfrey, talk show host. Y'all all know who Oprah is. So centuries ago in Africa, a great drought plagued the land. The wheat fields were completely dry. Without adequate water, there would be famine. A young farmer sat on a riverbank. He had just returned from the village shrine, where he had prayed for rain for hours. As he sat on a ledge overlooking the winding river, the stories told to him by his grandfather began to overtake him. In his grandfather's day, hundreds of thousands of people perished because of famine. Faced with similar prospects for his generation, he thought, he thought of ways to avert a catastrophe. What could he do? With the flash of inspiration, he had a vision. With a flash of inspiration, he had a vision. He would develop a treadmill that was propelled by an ox. When the animal walked, it moved in a circle, scooping buckets of water from the river and dumping them in a trough in the wheat fields. Since that time, there hasn't been a famine because of lack of rain. Day after day, in a most mundane task, an ox would turn the treadmill that would supply water to drought stricken crops. If we're not careful, at various points in our lives, we can resemble an animal on a treadmill. Not one that raises water from a river, but one that is weary and frustrated. How can we get off? I say, how can you get off? By utilizing the same keys used by the African farmer: motivation, a burning desire, and the ability to think. Otherwise, you might need to be strong or as strong as an ox. I got a lot out of that, but
Mm.
what can you do is sticking with me. What could he do? Like, what could he do? You hear stories of people going through things, of the world changing, of us edging God out with our egos and allowing things and people to take over the wrong things. And do we ask
Mm.
ourselves, what can I do? What can I do? And if you ask that question, do you do what you can do? Because what you ought to do, you should do. And what you should do, you ought to do. Do you know what it is you ought to do? Do you know? And if you don't, are you, because it says he had just returned from the village shrine where he had prayed for rain for hours, for hours. And some of us have trouble praying just for a second. Over to you, Brandon.
Thanks, Mom. You gave me a lot of things to think about what you should do praying for hours. But I think I'm gonna go in reverse order. The first thing he did was he went to the shrine and he prayed for hours. What does praying do? Specifically, praying for hours. I think the fact that he put a time on there to I think the fact that he put a time on how long this person prayed gives a detail and an insight to purpose behind that wasn't shared for no reason, right? So he prayed for hours. Then he went uh he went back to the riverbank. So he had just returned from the village shrine. So meaning when you say return, that means you were there before,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You were there before. So he was must have been at the river before. And then he went to the shrine and prayed for hours because there was a drought in the land and because he knew his people would be without water. And he had heard stories from his grandfather of the time when thousands of people, maybe even more, had died due to famine. What does this remind us of? What are the famines of our community? What are the famines of our culture?
Mm-hmm.
What are the famines of our values? Right? Or the water. What's the sustenance? Right? Water is such a critical thing. It's very hard to make civilization without water. It's very easy to become antagonistic with other people around you when you don't have water. War, famine, things like that come when resources are small and people are great, or there's great numbers at least. So I'm just trying to put ourselves in the shoes of this individual. But he went to the shrine and he prayed for hours. When you pray, it's not for God, it's for you. You're doing God no favors. You're doing the Creator no favors by praying. This is for you. He's subsisting, sustaining, and all of these things. He neither is born nor dies. So it's for us. Now, when we go into a state of prayer or a state of meditation, even, our brain waves change. That's a scientific fact. So we slow things down. And I think once we slow things down and go from sympathetic to parasympathetic nervous system, I'm not going to get too deep into that, but we are able to find new solutions to old challenges, obstacles, and negative situations. So while we're out there rushing around in the midst of it all, it's very hard to be inspired. It's very hard to find something new and creative because you're in the midst, in the mud, in the thick of it. But just like Siddhartha Gautama, or the founder of Buddhism, or the noteworthy person of Buddhism, he retreated out of the city and sat under a bo tree before inspiration hit, before he became enlightened. You know, Jesus in the wilderness. There's Muhammad in the cave. There's a sense of reclusing yourself in order to solve these great challenges of your day, or of your community, or of your whatever. So it was in those moments that he prayed, and he had to complete his prayer. And he got up with no answer then and there, and still left and walked back to the place that he came, because it didn't say that, he went to the river. It said the young farmer sat on a riverbank. He had just returned from the village shrine where he had prayed for hours. So he returned to this place, and that's when the inspiration hit, if I'm not mistaken. So as he sat on a ledge overlooking the winding river, the stories told to him by his grandfather began to overtake him. So he was stricken again with the grief of understanding the size of this catastrophe, and the potential for famine. In his grandfather's day, hundreds of thousands of people were killed or were perished because of famine. Faced with similar prospects for his generation, he thought of ways to avert a catastrophe. What could he do? He asked himself internally a question: what can I do? What can I do? And so in that situation, we go back to the quote from Oprah Winfrey: what you ought to do, you should do, and what you should do, you ought to do. What could he do? He didn't, he opened it up to the possibilities. What are all the possible things that I could do right now to help this situation? And that's when the flash of inspiration happened. That's when he had a vision. Now, where was he? He was at the place of the resource. He was at the river of what he needed. He knew, he was like, I need water. I'm going where the water is. I want rain. He prayed for rain, right? He prayed for rain, for precipitation, because that's what watered the fields. But here's a river right here, full of water. Full of water. We can go drink water from the river, but we need this water to sustain our plants and our vegetation and our wheat. So he went to the source and prayed at a natural resource. He went and he had already prayed and came back to this resource and began to think and to contemplate. And that's where he had the flash of inspiration, and he had a vision. Now, what is a vision? A vision is just something you see in your mind's eye, right? He had a vision of some type of solution to this challenge of needing water. But then if you notice, he acted on it. There are tons of things that we have visions about, that we have solutions for, that we say, it will be good. You know what would fix that? If so-and-so did this, or if this like this and this. But if you had the inspiration, so-and-so didn't have the inspiration. God put that on your mind, on your heart. So it's not about them. It's about you. So if you have that inspiration, you have the idea, you have the talent, you have the know-how, you have the wherewithal, then now you have the ability to respond, and it's your responsibility to do that. So what did he do? He developed a treadmill that was propelled by an ox. When the animal walked, it moved in a circle, scooping buckets of water from the river and then dumping them in a trough in the wheat fields. So it scoops up the water, it comes around through the trough, and that's what it delivers it through the wheat field. So I started looking up what this looks like. And so imagine buckets from an ox going in a circle, picking up water out of the river,
Mhm.
and then traveling it down through a trough all the way down to water the fields. And so that's genius, right? For that moment. And now his people, and I'm sure now millions of other peoples have avoided a famine because he would develop his vision. He didn't just have the vision and say, well, I'm going to get buckets myself and pull them over. Because at the end, what does it say? It says by utilizing the same keys used by the African farmer. And what were those keys? Motivation,
Motivation.
a burning desire, and the ability to think. Ability, there's that word again, response ability. He said ability. Otherwise, you might need to be as strong as an ox. Because if the ox don't do it, he's going to have to do it. You see what I'm saying? He's going to
Yeah.
have to get bucket by bucket and put it onto the wheat fields. That is
Yeah.
inefficient. It's not sustainable. But this ox can do it with ease, with relative ease, because it's strong.
Mhm.
But he had the ability to think, to put the ox to work for him, this beast of burden. And that's what saved him, his ability to develop tools that he already had. So most times, go to God about something, we already have, if we have the ability to form the question, if we have the ability to have the experience or the need, then why would God not provide also the ability for us to cure it or to satiate that need? Just by having the challenge itself, we know that we have the ability to have a vision, to think it through, to create it, and or to
To be motivated.
develop it,
Okay.
and then to start it. So
Okay.
if we have all of those abilities just through the thought of our mind's eye, what is it? What is it? Imagine it's a memory that hasn't happened yet. You save a memory in your mind that hasn't happened yet. That's imagination. That's creativity. And then it comes around. Then you develop it. You don't just sit there, but he developed it himself. So that's what I got out of it, Mom. We don't have to be as strong as an ox. We just have to be as smart as this man.
And strong as an ox, I just, as you were kind of winding it down, we're not physically stronger than an ox, right? But
Mm-hmm.
mentally, we can be, we are. And so I think about when I thought about him going, as you were saying, your due, going away to pray for hours, but he comes back and he sits with, and I love the fact that he was able to sit with his grandfather, and his grandfather told him about a time where many were lost, and that now he's prayed, y'all, but he's come back not with, okay, I prayed, I'm gonna go back business as usual. He came back with a willingness to work, to have a vision. So to me, prayer, I look at it like spiritual exercise, that it makes you stronger spiritually.
Yeah.
It makes you have the ability, or allows you to have the ability to think, to have vision, right? So that
Yeah.
you can do what it is, carry out the prayer, the things that you just prayed for. And so often we'll pray, but we don't want to do. We don't want to act upon that prayer. Oh God, just come and fix it. Just make it rain. Well,
Mm.
God made it rain, or he solved the issue through allowing him to be able to see the vision and then act upon it. So not just pray. And there are times where we do just have to give it over prayer, because there are some things that we won't be able to do anything about other than just pray and wait for God to give us a vision about that thing, or just to release it, take the thorn out of our side. But how do we endure with a thorn in our side? Right? So
Right.
that just is so it's so awesome and interesting to me. I love the fact that he's able to sit there with grandfather. Who are we able to pray? Do you have somebody that you can go pray, and you can come back, and you can have such a spiritual anointing conversation with them that it allows you, it helps you to be able to think through and say, not on my dime. We will not lose people on my dime. What can I do? Rather than, well, I've prayed, that's all I can do. What can I do?
What did you
As
used to
I
say,
wait
Mom? Pray
for
with your
this
feet.
change, and pray with your legs. Pray with
Mm-hmm.
your
Like
knees
pray,
and pray with your legs. Right.
pray in action.
Right.
Don't pray just do all that you can do. Right. Like
Right.
put your own. If you're just praying and you're not trying to help yourself, why would I don't know. For me, and I'm not God, of course, but why would God give you something out of the blue that you haven't done anything for? Like what is like? There's only a fool will sit there at a garden and be like, you know, grow, please, God, make my garden grow. Lord, I want all these fruit and vegetables and pick them for me too. I just want when I wake up, Lord, just put them on a put them in a basket for me.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
Like we have to water these plants. We have to plant the seed. We have to, put them in the right position and cultivate and amend the soil. Are we the ones that make it grow? Even we can do all of that and it cannot grow. God makes it grow, but after we've done something to help ourselves, right? So if you're not doing that, then how can you, like, you don't have skin in the game. You haven't put effort forward. So how can you expect to be blessed with that? And you haven't even done the work. That's like if I expect to win a fight and I haven't trained, right? Like I'm just
Mm-hmm.
riding on faith. Like I'm just gonna go out there and this guy's been training for weeks for me, and I was like, I ain't gonna train. No, that would be ridiculous. I prayed. I'm good. Like that's dumb faith. Don't have dumb faith. Be smart in your faith as well. And put the best foot forward. Put your best effort forward, and then leave the outcome to God.
Brandon, it says here,
Yeah.
faced with similar prospects for his generation, faced with similar prospects for his generation, he thought of ways to avert a catastrophe. What could he do? And then it says, with the flash of inspiration, with the flash of inspiration, he had a vision. Imagine being able to still be inspired through a moment like this. Only prayer will allow you to be that, to be with a flash of inspiration. He had a vision, not just a vision, y'all. He would develop a treadmill that was propelled by an ox. Now, that was inspiration. And that inspiration
Something that hadn't
allowed him to
existed.
see this vision and make it happen, to birth that baby, to birth it,
Yeah.
not just see it, but
Yeah.
to birth it, to act upon it in faith, after praying for hours. Because sometimes after you pray for hours, you be like, okay, I'm gonna wait. It's gonna rain in about an hour. You're still trying to be God there. You're still trying to be God, where God is
Right.
saying, okay, what will you do while I have you waiting? And sometimes we might see that as a lack of faith, but being able to be inspired and have vision in the midst of situations that you feel are above you, that's a God moment. That's a God moment. But so often we close ourselves off after prayer.
Hmm.
After that seed has been planted, we don't go water it. Waiting on you, God. Waiting on you, God. Open this door for me, God. I'm right here. Open it. And he's saying, there's a knob right there. I got you. You got hands. Just reach out and open it. And sometimes we'll pray that the door opens and we won't even walk through it. Pick me up, God. Carry me through the door. Woe, it's me. And I say, whoa, it's me. I'll
Yeah.
show you somebody else. I'll tell you somebody else's story. That's whoa, it's me. But they ain't woeing. They getting up, they walking, they praying, they're being inspired, they have vision, and they're building a treadmill. They develop a treadmill that will be propelled by an ox. That's what they're doing while they wait. So
To
this
avoid
was
famine.
good.
To avoid
To
famine. That's
avoid
crazy.
famine. So this
Yeah.
this
You know
is
what, Mom?
good.
you reminded me of something. Culturally, so we're reading through Daily Motivations for African American Success. And shout out to the people. I actually got some brothers that came in on my Instagram live. Thank you to Barack. Thank you to Tony Delahousie, who is both of these guys are fighters and I've trained with. And Tony said nothing done worthwhile in life is free. We have to put the effort
Mm.
in for results. Nothing worthwhile is free. Everything comes at some type of cost or sacrifice. We know that being fighters, that there's so much that we sacrifice in order to be successful, in order to not even just to be successful by other people's standards, right? As far as the fights, but as far as character development or skill development and being able to develop a certain skill or something we're not able to do right now. There's things that we have to develop. There's things that we have to do and sacrifice in order to gain those arrows. Shoot.
You know, you know what, Brandon?
But one thing that it reminded me of is the fact that yes, you go ahead,
I
sweetie.
really like what the guy said there on Instagram. That we have to put in some type of effort. If you don't mind, read that again.
Sure
Read that.
thing. He said, nothing done worthwhile in life is free. We have to put the effort in for results.
Okay.
Shout out to Tony. He's a fighter too. I hope y'all support him. It's Tony TonyDelaHoussaye on Instagram. Amazing fighter, up and coming pro. Shout out to him.
That reminds me of one we had, and
But
I think you were gone. And it says there's no such thing as free lunch. It says someone has paid the price for that lunch, right? There's no such thing as free lunch. It kind of reminded
right.
me of that. Um, Go ahead, and I have one more thing I'd like to add before we get off. We did not read the daily affirmation.
I
I
just
don't think, did we? I don't know if you.
You know what? I don't think we did.
I don't think
How
we.
about that? I don't think we did. I don't think we did. Let me say this really quick because I just want to remind people of where they come from, specifically the people in our family. I wanted to say too, since Tony, um, I think Tony's Mexican and white. I think, but just because this book says daily motivations for African American success, if you are here, you are at the cookout. You have been invited to the cookout. And just because these motivations have the title of African American, we speak through the lens and the history of our people, doesn't mean that you're not welcome. So make sure that nobody feels like, oh, they're reading from an African American book. There's nothing I can get from this. Look at this. Tony just gave us brought a plate to the cookout. You feel me? So I appreciate that. But in that same context, I do want to say, look at the history of African Americans. And you reminded me of this, Mom, and what we've done with nothing, what we've done under certain circumstances. Look at all of the inventions that have come from Africans, from the first automatic elevator refrigerator to the street, like the traffic signal, to even fun things like the super soaker or the folding iron board, like just George Washington Carver in forming what is now the plant or the like the factory. The automatic gear shift inside of cars, gas mask, the portable electric hair straightener from Madam C.J. Walker that women use around the world, the double action revolver. There's so many things that African Americans have created, not to mention global culture. We have done the most creative things in the least of spaces. So for those people that are from that community, even if you're not, just know that you have the human ability, that we are all 99.999% the same genetically as a chimpanzee. All human beings are 99.99% the same as a chimpanzee. So what difference is there between you and me? What difference? It's stupid. It's immaterial. So know that just within our culture and in our ability as a human species, it is the discomfort that is the stimulus or the catalyst for us to do great things. So whenever there's a challenge or an obstacle, we have an opportunity to surpass them and to overcome them with greatness, with ingenuity, with innovativeness, right? So with inspiration, with vision. So start there. Start knowing first what you come from, who you are. That humans don't have huge muscles. I mean, some of us do, but humans don't have humans don't have these super fast or or super big, in order to be the top of the food chain. But where are we? We're at the top of the food chain because of this, because of this, because of inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
So use what you're good at, your tools, your talents,
Mm-hmm.
to figure this stuff out. There's no challenge that we have as a species, as communities, as families, as individuals, that we can't overcome. So just start there from a point of knowing your own human potential and the potential of the people beside you. And like, I'll speak again, as a fighter, knowing what humans are capable of, that makes me train,
Mm-hmm.
because I know what all of us are capable of. I just have to put forth the best effort, not always the most effort, but the best quality of effort. Right. And so I can't, how much of a fool would I be to say that the best effort is going to be how hard I work? If I was this man, this African man who was avoiding a famine for his people, who the
Mm-hmm.
previous famine killed hundreds of thousands of people in his grandfather's time, and if I did the same things they did, getting buckets and putting them inside of the water, then running them back and trying to throw them on my wheat fields to avoid famine, then I'm working really, really, really hard.
Yeah.
Right? That doesn't mean that I'm the most successful. But what this man did is he invented a mechanism. He invented a way. He invented. And so I wanted to go through the Black inventors, but he had invented and developed a tool that the ox would go in the circle on the treadmill, and it would create force to pick up buckets of water and send them through the trough down to water these fields. And so he's not doing a whole lot of work other than on the front end of building it. And then the ox does the rest. So now he's
Yeah.
more successful and had to work and stress less.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
are we working smart, or are we working hard? Are you working 40 hours a week, for somebody else's dream, and that's not your dream? You're not happy there? I'm asking you to put 10 hours a week into your own thing. 5 of dedicated hours. Where would it get us? Right? On
Brandon,
our own dime. You
Brandon,
say not on my dime, but what is on yours?
right. I'd also like we're at Thursday. How many
Mm.
hours, how many minutes have you put into prayer? Have you prayed? Have you gone away? Have you stepped away, kneeled down and prayed, and then walked back, returned, and was inspired? And that inspiration created a vision. But how do you keep this going? He says, by utilizing the same keys used by the African farmer. So he prayed, he came back, he had a conversation with his grandfather. He learned of thousands of people whose lives were lost. And somewhere mentally, he said, not here, not on my dime, right? Are you
Right.
saying that, right? Have you said that? How many times have you said that? And you were inspired and you had a vision, but this is where it went wrong. You weren't motivated, you didn't have a burning desire, and you were not
Mm.
capable. Let me not say capable. You did not have the ability to think it through. And maybe it's because you don't pray, or we don't pray enough. We don't seek ye first the kingdom of God enough to even get to the point or get past the point of just being inspired with a vision. Because otherwise, if you don't do this, you might need to be as strong as an ox. But then you're going to determine, you're going to figure out, oh man, I'm not. I'm not stronger than an ox physically, because that's what you're working with. You've not put in enough hours doing the spiritual exercise, which is prayer to me. You've not put in enough hours, right? Because we'll go do 40, 45, 60. We'll go do everything else, but we don't have time to pray. We don't have time to just sit. amidst our Creator. And just listen. If you don't have anything to say, just listen. That means we now have to be stronger than an ox, and then we realize we're not, and so we do nothing. We do nothing past the inspired vision. We do nothing. And we're not physically fit enough. How you do it, Brandon? We don't have enough muscle to carry out the vision, right? Because we've not, as Tony said, we've not put
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
effort. So are you stronger than an ox?
Hey,
Are you
also
trying to?
let me say something.
Okay.
I had a whole brain fart, mama. I don't know why, but
Hmm.
I was talking about Tony had said he you know the quote that I gave from Tony. Tony is Nick's father. The spider I was speaking about was Nick Delahousie, and Tony, who gave the quote, is actually Nick's father. And I know them
Oh,
well. Like, these are my brothers. This is who we traveled. Me and Jason, when we traveled down to Mississippi
yeah.
uh, to do jujitsu, that's whose gym we go to is Tony's. And so in my head, I was thinking about Nick, and then reading from Tony, and then coming back here. So Tony, forgive me. He said, "Hey man, it's me. Like,
But
you
Tony is
know
the
who I
father.
am. Me and Nick and the guy and my huh?
Tony is father
What?
to Nick. Tony is okay.
Right, right. Yeah. So his sons are fighters, and they have their own gym and things like that. And I was just thinking about Nick, and then talking to
Okay.
Tony. So it just had a brain fire. We was laughing about it on the comment
Too
section. So,
young for that, Brandon. You're too young for
but yeah,
that.
thank y'all for tuning in.
I said you're
I
too young
know
for
it's just
that. Yeah, it's all
early.
good.
The coffee ain't set in. But he said it's all good. We still love you. We watching and making breakfast. LOL.
All
So
right.
thank y'all for rocking with us, man. But
So
mom, we
let's
did not
read.
read the affirmation
Yeah,
for
let's
today.
read the affirmation while you're getting ready to do that. Miss Brenda, thank you for letting us know. Miss Brenda says she is feeling better. Just making sure she's taking her meds every day.
Awesome.
So great, great. Glad to hear that.
Good job, Miss Brenda. So the affirmation for today, do you want to end it right here with this affirmation?
I guess we can. I think there's something really important as we talk about, as you say it. Well, let me let you read it first, and I'll have one thing to say about it,
All right. Because
and we
all
won't
right,
read
bet.
it
Okay.
again to end it. We'll just go ahead and read it the three times, and then we'll speak on it, and just go ahead and end out.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So the title again was "Strong as an Ox," and the quote from Miss Winfrey said, "What you ought to do, you should do, and what you should do, you ought to do." And so we went through that whole passage about centuries ago in Africa when the drought plagued the land, and the man ended up creating, after praying and contemplating for a while, ended up creating an invention that used the force of an ox on a treadmill to water the fields and to avoid famine in all the land. And the affirmation that we'll read three times, time for me, one time for you, and one time for the person that you're going to send this to or tell it to today, because we want to work on passing these inspirations and motivations on, to change not only our experience, but the experience of others. But the affirmation that we'll read today is, today I will examine those areas that keep me stuck in place. It needs motion for this ox has to turn the treadmill in order for the water to feed the wheat fields. So today I will examine those areas that keep me stuck in place. Where are you stagnant? Where have you not grown in a while? It might be patience. It might be a skill set. It might be any of those things. It might be entrepreneurship. But what is stagnant? Your relationship. That's what is stagnant in your life right now. Is that keeping you stuck in place? So for the last time, you say it internally or out loud. Today, I will examine. It's on the bottom of your screen if you guys don't know. Today, I will examine those areas that keep me stuck in place. Today, I will examine those areas that keep me stuck in place. So what you got, Mom? Were you inspired?
So
Did you have a vision while I was
the
reading that?
So it's the stuck in place for me. What if our young farmer came back and became stuck in place, right? Just sitting there with his grandfather, heard the story, but was not moved by it, right? Was not, what if he wasn't moved by it? What if he didn't internalize the question, what can I do? And some of you all, you're sitting, you're listening, and you're in situations, circumstances, things are happening in your life because life happens, right? We're all in different seasons. I love this that they say that we're either going through something, coming out of something, and I'll say a season, going through a season, coming out of a season, or preparing for one, right? So we must always, always, always be prepared. How do we prepare? Be true to you. Be true to where you are, what you're going through, how you're feeling about it. But don't get stuck in place. Don't get stuck. And ask yourself, right? Am I motivated for the seed that God has planted, the talents or the talent? Because some of us only need one talent. Some of us, we've been given many, right? Are you motivated? If not, how do you get motivated? Maybe you need to have a sit down with grandfather, father, uncle, best friend, somebody who is. Do you have that burning desire? And how to answer that question is, what are you doing? Is there any action behind the motivation and the burning desire? Or is it just a thought that you cannot because you do have the ability to do so. But for some reason you cannot because you're stuck in place. Where did you get stuck? Why are you stuck? And are you motivated enough, have a burning desire enough to think it through? I heard something last night, and it's very compelling to what we're talking about today because it struck me. And I didn't know who Jeezy was. I had to say, who is that? Because this is who said it.
Come on, Young
And
Jeezy, the rapper.
Jimmy says, that's Jeezy. What's wrong with you?
Hey,
So
and look, and how old is Jimmy?
I don't know. I don't even know who Jeezy was.
You know what I'm saying? How
Jeezy,
old is Jimmy? Jimmy's like 60, ain't he?
64,
And
64,
Jimmy knows who Young Jeezy is.
whatever.
That's cool. That's cool.
I don't, y'all. I don't. So I was like, but what this person said, and so I had to ask, who is that young man? Jeezy said, you can't talk to black people. You have to talk through them. Have y'all heard Jeezy say that? He said, you cannot just talk to black people. You have to talk through them. And I heard that. I was like, wow. And what?
I'm sorry, Mom.
Let me finish. Wait now, because this is important.
No, I'm
And
sorry. No, it's the way you said. You said Jeezy said, and it just tripped me out. I'm sorry.
y'all, and I'm gonna
I'm
say,
sorry, Mom. You
this
go
is for
ahead, baby. I'm
everybody.
on
Like
another
this is,
level, right?
and I'm thinking like that's true, but it's also true for everybody because all of us got some stuff that we need to talk through you for you to hear us. Because everybody, if we're truthful with ourselves, we're stuck in a place, whether we want to admit it or not. I understand why he's saying black people. He's a black man. He knows the struggle. He knows that some of us are stuck in many places. We feel like we are because of some of the challenges that we've gone through, right? But this
Yeah.
book gives you fresh acknowledgement, a fresh perspective, the ability to know when to say no and when to say yes, and when to look inward for life's challenges. That's it right there. But more than anything, go away, step
Mm,
away from it all every day and seek ye first the kingdom of God. Pray.
mm.
And that's what I'll end with.
That sounds
But
good to
Jesus
me,
said
Mom.
that.
Mom, it's just funny to me because I mean, I've played a lot of Jeezy songs and just like especially some of the older content of
What's
Jeezy.
one of
Just
his songs? Tell me what, give me one of his songs.
you want me to play one?
No, don't
No,
play it. Just tell me what it is. I'll
you
look it
you
up.
you would I put on
I what? I put
I
on,
put on. Put on by
put on.
Jeezy. Uh-huh.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
probably one of his more famous ones. Uh Trap or Die, Thug Motivation 101, his old albums. But it's just the juxtaposition of like of young Jeezy, who's known as the snowman for cocaine drug dealing and things like that. In his previous times, he's matured a bit now as far as his rhetoric. But that juxtaposed to my beautiful sweet mother over here. My mother said, "Do you know who Jeezy is?" Jeezy said, just that tripped me out for me, man. I had a Twilight moment. So,
I wish I could remember the
but Jeezy
guy.
did say that.
He did say that last night, and the guy that was interviewing him is the guy that I think he's white, but he knows all of these. He loves the rap. He talks about rap and all of that. Like I don't know his name. I'll try to
Is it
find him.
Vlad?
What?
Vlad? He
I
it's
don't
like
know.
it's a. Did you
He's
see
a
his
new
face?
who Jeezy or the guy who does the interview?
The guy who
Did
did the
the
interview.
Yeah, yeah, I saw his face. He
Okay,
was
not
doing
well.
it. And he interviews a lot of black artists, and he knows like all the songs or everything. He knows just I don't know. I'm gonna find his name. Y'all help me. Who is this man? Um,
I don't know. I don't
okay,
know. It'll
I'll
come.
find it. I'll
It'll
find
come
it.
to you.
No, it won't
But
come.
but
I'll have to search it because it won't come
we
to
might.
me.
Hey, at tomorrow's show, we might have to open up the show with a Young Jeezy song.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. And I know I'm not the only one
Oh,
that.
you know the song "My President Is Black, My Lambo Blue." You know that song? Okay, never mind. Okay, that was back when like the during the Obama president. I just remember that song in college. But y'all, I hope you guys have enjoyed this 78th edition of Daily Motivations for African American Success. Thank y'all for rocking with us on In This Season podcast. We're here every single morning at 7 a.m. Me going live. The Gladiator Gator. You guys might know me as a fighter, songwriter, policy dude. But today I'm the son and co-host of the beautiful butterfly over here. Herself. So thank y'all for rocking with us. We are reading through Daily Motivations of African American Success. Please get the book on Amazon. It doesn't cost a lot. Every single day there's a different motivation. Every single day there's a different quote. Every single day there's a different affirmation. And we see we try to look for these to practice this affirmation throughout the day until the next day. Come back, talk about what happened, and talk about what we're going to do on the next day, and be wholly inspired with ourselves and each other. So please keep it going and share this with someone. We're on YouTube Live, Facebook Live, Instagram Live. Share it, like it, tell the algorithm that this is the type of content you want to see. And we'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. Anything you got to say, Mom, before we go?
I was looking for the. I'm gonna have the name of the person who interviewed Jeezy. I will find out and I'll post it, but I'm gonna also share it with you guys tomorrow because I put Jerry. I want to know now, and
All
y'all
right,
gonna
I'm
know who it
I'm gonna
is.
send you some Jeezy songs, Mom, for you to put on your playlist as you drive today. If you go anywhere, I just want you to just bump some Jeezy today. That's gonna make my day.
Send them to me. Well, I could look him up now. I could
Okay.
look his name up on YouTube and just play the whatever, play the his album or something. I don't know.
All right. It
So,
sounds good. Well, thank
all
y'all
right.
again.
Thank you for rocking with us, y'all. Become find out where you what place you are stuck in, and then unlearn it. Get unstuck. How about that?
Yeah.
Get unstuck. Be inspired, motivated, burning desire, and think it through.
Vision, baby. Vision, baby. All right, y'all. Y'all take care. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Same time, same place, 7 a.m. right here. Peace.